Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. Hi, Julie. Hi, Nicole. Good to see you.
Good to see you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. We
Yeah.
have a few other people that are saying they're going to pop in. Nicole, I know you're juggling kids. I got a few mamas juggling kids who are going to be popping on here while also juggling children. So, yeah, feel free to turn your camera on and off as we go. I am recording this for a few folks as well. So, just really happy to be here and talk a little bit more about business and flow and how that all intersects together. So, um, we'll give folks a little bit of time to pop in and just welcome them in as we go. I'm really excited to be here with you all today. I consider this quite a milestone for me personally because in the past, when I have done master classes or workshops, I have relied on a PowerPoint slide deck to really feel secure in what I'm talking about. And I made a very conscious decision leading up to this masterclass that I was going to forgo that. And really, I want this workshop to be interactive, to be engaging, and really to be shared with you from my heart. While incorporating the elements that you would expect from a slide deck. So really, I am excited to just kind of dive into things and talk more about my experience as an entrepreneur and really allow the conversation to organically move where we need to. So you're welcome at any point to unmute, to pop a question into the chat. Again, I want this to be engaging and interactive so you really walk away in an hour's time feeling like you got what you needed. Um, and we'll go from there. So, my first kind of opening question for you all, and again, feel free to share. And if you just want to use this, if you're watching the replay, reflecting about, this in your own time, you can pause the video and take some time to think about this. But I know why I'm here today offering this masterclass, but I really want to know what brought you here. You could be doing a million other things right now, and you made a conscious decision to allocate time here in live and also in your free time to watch this replay. So, really taking a minute and thinking about why. Why make the space and time? And what brought you here? What attracted you to this masterclass? So once you have some time to mull that over, it could be one thing in particular, or it could be a myriad of things. Maybe you were just interested in how the advertising was done. Maybe you personally know me. There could be many different reasons. I think the reason that I offered this masterclass is because I am seeing a shift among our larger society. I think more people now than ever are getting curious with what it means to be an entrepreneur. I was talking to a colleague that I actually went to undergrad with, and we reconnected, almost 15 years later. And she said she also is in the coaching world. And she said, I am just getting an influx of people from tech, medicine, engineering, IT, like all these well-established fields, reaching out to her and asking her, tell me more about being an entrepreneur. And this can be for many different reasons. But what her and I were speaking about was the economy is up in the air. A lot of people are uncertain about, if I lose my job, how will I be able to um, get a new one? Will there be space for me? But even more than that, I think it is people who are getting burnt out, who are feeling like they want to do something that aligns more deeply with their own mission and purpose. and they are craving to kind of disrupt the systems that they're coming from. And so I do suspect that here in the coming years, there are going to be more and more people who are going to want to step away from a traditional 9 to 5 practice or kind of operation and really create something of their own. And I'll talk a little bit more about my background, but I primarily work with children. That has been my professional trajectory thus far. And in interacting with kids every day, I see that this new generation of children, they are thinkers that go well beyond the outside edges of the box. They challenge things at a very young age, and they are inherently disruptors. So I do think this new generation that is coming up behind us are also going to be wrestling with, like, I want to do something more. I want to do something that challenges the status quo. And that makes me really excited because um, I think that's a broader shift that's happening in our society. And it also gives us an opportunity to think critically about that. So, um, with that being said, I want to talk to you a little bit about my background and who I am. Like I said, I know most of you on this call, so you kind of have a little bit of tidbit, but even sharing more about what brought me into hosting this masterclass today. So, Dr. Elena Puff, I was trained traditionally as a teacher and then as a psychologist. And I have been operating my coaching and consulting practice for 2 years. We just celebrated two on the 11th. And I never anticipated becoming an entrepreneur. It was never part of the plan. If anything, I wanted to be like everybody else and just like get a job that I, moderately liked and it paid well. But really, I have come to discover that I was never meant for that life. And so a lot of my journey that I share in talks and presentations is about like trying to fit myself in spaces that I was never meant to fit in. And that might feel true for a lot of you here today. And I, kind of threw myself into becoming an entrepreneur because I was working as a therapist at a traditional private practice, working like what arguably many people in my field would consider the dream job. But I was meeting with children and adults and families, and it was almost like they were mirroring back to me like what I knew to be true about myself. I had adults talking about how they were burnt out at their job. I had kids who didn't fit into the traditional school model. And I knew that there was something kind of unearthing within the collective energy of our society of people who wanted to do something different. And so I didn't know the first thing about running a business, operating a business. I was clueless. I don't come from a line of entrepreneurs. So really, I just took to the internet, which was a blessing and a curse because it's a blessing. There's so much resources and information out there, and people like myself who are positioning themselves as experts, but there's also a lot of misinformation and things that were deeply not aligned with me. So I found myself in all these workshops, attending all these courses, and really sitting there and going, none of this truly resonates. I was going to networking events and putting myself in rooms with other amazing women and entrepreneurs and feeling deeply alone. And so that got me thinking, like, what the heck? Like, do I not fit here either? Like, what is going on here? And what came of it was, getting mentorship and guidance to help me begin to uncover who I am, who I am, and why I'm here. And I'm going to be honest with you all, like, I never expected my entrepreneurial journey to crack me open in the way that it did. I talk with a lot of parents about how your children crack you open. They show you the most beautiful parts of yourself and arguably the worst parts of yourself. And I would go and say that your business probably does something very similar. And so that was an uncovering for me of realizing there were certain patterns and belief systems and deeply programmed things in my nervous system that were contributing to the way I was showing up in my business. And this was the discovery that came of it. And so, over the last 2.5 years that I've really been doing this work and simultaneously operating this business, I'm now in a place, which is maybe why well, didn't do the slide deck or PowerPoint today because I'm now in this place where I can show you numbers, I can show you metrics that this really works. I think previously when I did these master classes, I was like, I feel great. This is great. Like I am doing the thing, but now I can really sit here with you all and say, numbers don't lie. Like this new paradigm of doing business actually works. And I'm so excited to share it with the world, with the people in my community, because I want to help liberate other people to accomplish the same thing. So I really want to share with you just some metrics that I was able to look up about my business over this last year and talk about, not in a bragging way, but in a real tangible way of how you can achieve this in your own business as well. So I'm a one-woman show. I have nobody hired. It's just me. I get some help with social media from a friend, but outside of that, it's just me doing this. Um, in the last year, so we're in quarter 4, so the last 3 quarters that make up 2025, I have worked an average of 28 hours a week. Yeah, like part-time, essentially part-time hours. I build my schedule around what feels good for me, and I work 28 hours a week. And when I talk about my hourly workload, I want to talk about why I was kind of lured into this entrepreneurial track. I am someone who very much wants to have a work-life balance. I want to create my own family. I want to find harmony. I want to be able to do the things I love, take vacation when I want it. And that was one of the reasons that I knew that I could never like fit in that PTO 9 to 5 paradigm. I want to be able to drop my kids off from school and pick them up if I want. And so this new way of doing business is an opportunity to reduce the number of hours that you're working. When I was in private practice, some weeks I was working 50 hours between seeing clients and doing admin and doing advertising and just all the things, billing insurance, like it was a lot. So now I work this beautiful balance of 28 intentional hours that ebb and flow, right? Like some weeks are heavier than others. But then also being able to generate over 6 figures of income in my business. And I did that halfway through quarter 2. And so it's profitable. And again, not coming from a bragging place, but coming from a place of like, we in a lot of like conscious community and business spaces get real iffy around numbers, especially as women. And I think it's really important to look your money in the eye, because we need money to function in this society. And especially, I know everybody on this call, you are healers. And in order to do the healing that you are required in your work, you should be rightfully compensated. You need to make sure that you can pay your bills and save for your future and pour into your family. And I think that is one of the things I'm going to talk about today, where people get kind of hooked into like, oh, wait, I don't know. And I see people tend to lowball themselves or undersell their services. But there is nothing wrong with wanting to make money in your business, and not just baseline, like get by, like have a profitable, thriving business. So aside from like working less than ever before, making more money, my work, I don't want to say feels effortless because that's not the right way to frame it, but my work is joyful. It's joyful. The people that I work with, I love. Every one of my families, my clients, my entrepreneurs that I work with are deeply aligned with my values. Back when I was working in public schools, I used to get the pit in my stomach on Sunday night, also known as the Sunday scaries. I have not experienced that since opening my business. And the other piece that I really love about this journey is for most of my life, I have really quelled my creativity, especially at work. Um, again, trying to fit in boxes I was never meant to be in. And one thing that I love about Flow State, the business that I've now created, is that I get to creatively flow with it. So if there's something that I want to do, like for example, Black Friday is next week, and I'm launching like my first digital workbook for highly sensitive and strong-willed kids and their families. I was just sitting down journaling like maybe a month ago, and I was like, I really want to do that. And guess what? I just did it. There's no like checking with my boss or, wondering it when I'll have extra time to do this. Like I just can have the spaciousness in my business where I'm not seeing 30 people a week, that if I want to create something, I can just do that. And so that like freedom of expression is so liberating and empowering. And I love that my business can kind of expand and contract as needed. So yeah, that's why I'm here. I want, if any of that, any piece of that or all of it sounds enticing to you, you're in the right place, like, and totally within your reach. I want to kind of shift into this idea of being conscious entrepreneurs because what we're here, I think one of the reasons, if I could take a guess of why you're here today, is because you probably know an entrepreneur, have been an entrepreneur, been in spaces with entrepreneurs, and there's probably part of you that doesn't really feel like you fit in some of those rooms and environments. And that's okay. I think that conscious entrepreneurship is the new way of doing business. And I want to begin by defining what conscious entrepreneurship is. Like, what does that actually mean? And I think in putting it in my own words, the way that I see it is conscious entrepreneurship is for people who are deeply purpose driven. So there's something inside of you, regardless of your professional training, of your practice that you do every day, there's something inside of you that is connected into some kind of deeper purpose. The reason you're on this planet right now, the reason you're on this call, there's something connecting you. And you might not be able to put that in words in this moment, or you may, but there's something connecting you to something bigger. And that's important. I think that's one of the most important things as you move through the entrepreneurial journey, is because you're going to iteratively return back to that purpose, especially in times of hardship or challenge. And so purpose driven is one quality. I think other things that define conscious entrepreneurs is they seek deep alignment with things. So like, for example, when I was in my PhD program, I was rotating between different clinical areas where I was serving children and families. I was in psychiatry in a hospital. I was in the juvenile justice system in the legal setting. I worked in community mental health, serving people there. I tried to fit in all these boxes to say, like, where am I most aligned in my work? And as you could imagine, being where I am today, none of those were a good fit. I felt deeply misaligned in those places, not because of my clients, but because the systems in which I was steeped in. And so, one of the things that I see for conscious entrepreneurs is where they don't feel aligned, they not only can usually be self-aware enough to identify that, and if they can't, then their body communicates to them that they're not, that is deeply misaligned. So I talk to people all the time who experience aches and pains, autoimmune conditions. They literally physically become sick. This is what happened to me. At 25, I developed an autoimmune condition working in the schools. I felt like an 85-year-old woman, but because my body was trying to communicate to me that I was in misalignment, yet I didn't have enough awareness at the time to really understand that. And so I overrode those messages and I became sick. And so I run into people all the time who come to me, they're working in these high leadership positions and they're like, I feel terrible. I'm not sleeping. I'm not eating. My hormones are all messed up. And it's like, this is your body's way of telling you that this is not sustainable and something needs to change. So deep alignment is definitely like one of the most driving factors for conscious entrepreneurs. The other piece of it is that they're very heart-centered. And what I mean by heart-centered is like empathetic, compassionate, like very deep thinkers. Yeah, thanks, Steph. Thanks for your comment. Heart-centered people. So these are our big feelers. These are our people who care deeply about the state of the world. They're not just here to make a ton of money and screw everybody over in the process. They really want to be in service to their clients and to the people they work with over everything. And so they're very relationally driven. They care deeply about broader issues going on within our world. And so that heart-centered work is so important. Um, I think with that, one of the things that I'll talk about is discernment with that, because there's a lot of um, manipulation of heart-centered people, and discernment is a really critical part of that for us to keep in mind. And then the last piece that I'll mention in the confines of this masterclass is that conscious entrepreneurs are ready to break away from the old archetype of doing things. So let me give you an example. I had wanted to be a psychologist since, I don't know, my early, like young adulthood. And I had spent my entire 20s more or less like getting there. And in the final hour of, obtaining my license to become a psychologist and have a private practice and do the things, I was put in a situation where I questioned that. And that was really challenging because I wanted to just like kind of go with that status quo of like, I just got to get to this thing and then I can do what I want. But what really forced me to kind of stop was like this deep knowing that there's something more, but I didn't know what that more was. And that's another big component of being a conscious entrepreneur is you have a vision, but you can't always see through or, what twists and turns are going to come, but you are deeply intuitive and understanding that there's something more. And my business coach at the time told me, sometimes when God closes doors, he opens windows. And are you scrappy enough, Elena, to climb out that window and do something different? And I never thought that was going to be my role, but in that moment, I knew absolutely that's exactly what I have to do. And I knew that in the broader field of psychology, my belief systems, my values would not be held in congruence with the larger field. That what I was feeling inside of myself and I was observing in my clients, it was bigger, more expansive than that. And so actually deviating from that traditional track was deeply unnerving, but it was also so divinely guided to bring me to where I am today. So conscious entrepreneurs are not just trying to build, a traditional practice and make profits and whatnot. They are meant to disrupt, to whether you're coming out of the mental health field, the medical field, whatever it may be, you are here to be visible, to be seen, to be beacons of light for other people within your profession who might be sitting in their clinical training right now going, man, I think I picked the wrong thing. Like it is up to us to be stewards of the folks that come behind us to show them that there's another way of doing things. No pressure, right? So yeah, like this is part of it. This is part of like how we're building this foundation. And like I said in the beginning of this talk, I think it's paving the way for the kids that are coming behind us and the kids you might be raising. So those are just some qualities that I often see that characterize conscious entrepreneurs. But what else I see is what they often struggle with. And this is really what I focus on in my coaching work because when you're breaking away from a system or a line of programming that has deeply been woven into your nervous system, it's very unnerving. It can create a lot of distress. And so I think that this is something that to begin with of like, what are some signs that you are in misalignment, that you are experiencing incongruence between what you're doing every day and what your life's purpose is? The number one thing I see is burnout. And I have been to so many burnout and self-care talks, and like a massage is not going to save you from this, and I'm so tired of people saying, like, oh, just make space. Like, if I'm working 60 hours a week as a nurse, when the heck am I going to make space? So these systems are built to drain. And it's really having to break away from those systems as a act of self-love that really helps people rewire their nervous system, reset that balance, and find their direction. Because when you're in the midst of it, you're just in survival mode. It goes back to this very function idea of fight or flight. And so burnout can look a lot of different ways. I look for physical symptoms. I look for autoimmune conditions that often show up in women. Burnout permeates every aspect of your life, to the way you're showing up for your spouse or partner, the way you're showing up for your kids, the way you're showing up for yourself, fatigue, energy shifts, mood changes, all the things. Sunday scaries was my biggest sign of burnout, of just feeling absolute dread before work every week. And so burnout is usually a sign, your body's way of saying, hey, we got to do something different. The other piece that I see among conscious entrepreneurs is they're usually broke. They're broke. Um, and there's a couple different reasons for this. And then one that this was probably the biggest piece that I had to wrestle with in the first year of my business was I am here to help people. And in my clinical training, I gave my services away for free because I was training. On my clinical internship, I got paid $21,000 because I was training. The whole archetype that academia had placed on me is you are in service to other people, Elena, and you should not be compensated well for that. Okay, let's think about that for a second. I'm in a community mental health center working with high risk teenagers every day, 40 hours a week of service, direct services for $21,000. I can barely put food on my table. This is where the whole, I'll use mental health as an example, is completely backwards. If we're not taking care of our therapists and our mental health providers, like how the hell do we expect them to take care of other people? Right? And so a lot of the things that I ran into when I was starting my business and I was setting my prices was I was referring back to that programming of being this indentured servant to other people. And this is what happens for a lot of people who step into entrepreneurship is they take that old programming with them and then they unconsciously recreate the same working conditions as their 9 to 5 and they go, I freaking hate this. Because now you have even more responsibilities. Now you're in charge of paying your employees or doing your marketing or, getting more clients, where at least at your 9 to 5, the clinic that you were working at just brought people in. So the unconscious recreation of that old way of doing things is the number one thing that I see around like conscious entrepreneurs and their money. And so it's really, first of all, identifying where is that old programming showing up? Why is it showing up? And what do I need to do to release that? And for me, again, I really had to look my money in the eye. I had to sit here and go, I'm not your average therapist. I'm extremely talented at what I do. And not because of the theories that I know or the things I can cite, but the thing that beats in my chest. When people come in and work with me, I I bring them so close to my heart and I hold them through the highs and lows of life. And then finding a way to attach a value to that. One that feels good for me, feels supportive for me to get up every day and do this work. And what I found was that in doing that process, my work deepened. It got stronger, it got clearer. Because instead of pouring from this empty cup just for the sake of helping people, I got in deep alignment with what my value was and worth. So, food for thought there. And then I think the other piece that I see among conscious entrepreneurs that is probably the most limiting factor to them getting support is they're very risk averse and fear driven. And I like laugh because this was like, they should have put my face over this one. Like I was so terrified. Like terrified is the emotion that I felt for the first like, year and a half of this journey, is just so scared. Like thinking I am 3 months away from this business tanking out and I'm going to have to go back to my old job with my tail between my legs and beg for it back because I failed. And I don't want to discredit that fear. It's valid, but it's also, I realized, an old program of my previous life before I became an entrepreneur. This need for perfectionism, this need for, if I don't do this, what does it say about me? If I don't make this amount of money this month, what does it say about me? If I don't help this person within this designated time frame, what does it say about me? It was my own internalized discomfort, dissonance that led me to unconsciously projecting this onto my business. It was a me problem. I was literally the problem. So disentangling that fear allowed me to feel more confident in taking calculated risks that allowed my business to expand and grow. I always say when I do my group coaching programs, fear is functional. Fear serves a purpose, like from a biological basis, all the way up into a very level of consciousness. Fear is an invitation to deepen in whatever way is coming forward. So if there's things in whether you're in your business or getting ready to like make this transition into opening or creating something, if you're afraid, that's good. It's the people who aren't afraid that I'm like, okay, let's take a beat here and think about this. Like you should be scared. I hate the word fearless because it's not true. Like when we do something that challenges us, inherently there's going to be fear. And I always say that you should do it scared, do it afraid. And so interrogating that fear is always very, very, very profound for the people that I work with. So those are some characteristics that I see among conscious entrepreneurs. And so what I really want to move our conversation to is around this idea of flow. The title of the masterclass is Aligned in Flow. The name of my business is Flow State. Flow is a very important component of how I run my business. And a little bit of history is flow is actually a term that comes out of psychology. It was developed out of this idea that I want you to think about a time where you've either been playing with your kids, maybe doing some kind of art or something where you're creatively accessing those parts of your brain. Athletes experience this where you get so engrossed in whatever activity you're doing that you start to lose track of time, like almost like time's like bends and slips away, and you were just feeling like so present in that moment. I know people who experience this when they practice yoga. Like it can be, it's an individualized experience, but this idea of that things come almost effortlessly. That is your flow state. And we as humans all have access to our flow states. But what happens is a lot of the time, especially in Western society, we're not encouraged to access those very often. And that's something that I really retrain from the little kids that I work with all the way up to my entrepreneurs to begin embracing your flow. One of the things that I started doing when I was on this journey at the very beginning was getting those adult coloring books. I had used them like in therapy, but like I would make space every night to just color in bed before I fell asleep. And, I'd be coloring these different pages and I'd look up and like an hour went by and I was like, oh crap, I gotta get to sleep. Like, put it away, Elena. But that was me really rewiring my brain to start getting into these places where I wasn't so logically minded. I didn't spend all my time in my prefrontal cortex thinking about what do I need to do tomorrow and did I run the dishwasher before I went to bed? And did I do this or did I do that? I was able to really be able to come out of that and start to come into my body, essentially. And that's a cornerstone of my practice is helping people return out of their head and into their body where our intuition lives, okay? Where that gut feeling exists. And so flow is this baseline state that we can find periodically, as we set the intention to, but flow can also be something that we find within our business. So for me, when I started really investigating where I feel flow the most in my life, it was actually in sessions with clients. I would be sitting with a client and I would look up, and anybody who is a therapist or has been in therapy, you might be able to relate to this where you look up and you're like, oh my gosh, where'd the hour go? We just started. Wait. And I found that when I was engaging with my clients and helping them unpack things and process things, time collapsed. I was just in it with them. And things that I was sharing with them were not coming from like this logic, resource minded part of me, but they were coming from here, my heart. And I was like, wow, I don't know where else in my life at that time I could really say that. And so I knew there was something here. And when I was thinking about what to name my business, flow state is reflective of where I was on my journey of dropping out of my head and into my heart. And so that's what I built this business around. It's not logically minded or driven. Of course, there is some logic that applies, of course, in running a business. And I'll talk about that in a second. But it is really being able to speak and operate from your heart because that's what your gift is. That is your greatest strength. And so what I did is I took this concept of flow and I placed it in the middle of this triangle. And each point of the triangle, so the three sides, represents a pillar of how I perceive the new way of doing business. And that's what I'm going to share with you all today. And my goal is that by sharing this with you, you can begin to think about where your business is at, whether it's been up and running for quite some time now, or it's just a little baby getting ready to be born. This is all applicable. And this is what I call my soul led framework. Okay. And this is the way that I have kind of, how do I want to say, the way that I have materialized things that I have been learning for the last 2.5 years. And this is a theoretical approach and a practical approach to building a business that is in alignment with conscious entrepreneurship. And so with flow kind of being at the middle and the center of my triangle, and maybe that feels different. Maybe there's a different word that is an embodiment of you and your business that goes in the center. And then from there, in no particular order, we start with each point of the triangle. So the first triangle is probably the one that you'll find least surprising, and this is strategy. Again, I didn't have an MBA. I didn't know how to run a business. I didn't know how to open a business bank account. Like I literally had no knowledge. And I think this keeps a lot of people at their like 9 to 5s because they're like, I don't know how to actually do this. Like, and strategy is such an important piece of entrepreneurship. But I think that's where like we as a collective entrepreneurship group get lost. I mean, all the workshops in the beginning that I went to were like strategy, strategy, strategy. Like if I heard funnel one more time, I was going to lose it. I was like, I don't know what to put in a funnel. I don't know what to say in my marketing. I'm afraid to show up on Instagram because what the heck do I have to offer? Strategy alone is not enough. I'll say it again. Strategy alone is not enough. You can chat GPT the best business strategy in the entire planet, on the entire planet, and I guarantee your business will not thrive. When it comes to conscious entrepreneurship, strategy alone is not enough. That's where I see people recreating the wheel of their 9 to 5. They have a beautiful website, they have great marketing, this polished, perfect image, but there is something deeply disconnected. They're not getting clients. They're not generating revenue. They're working 60 hours a week. It's pretty on the surface, and that's about it. So while strategy is incredibly important, it is not enough. It is not enough to be the only operating piece of your business. And I ran into the same trap myself. I was so focused on the strategy, but then I intuitively knew there was something else, but I didn't know what. So that brings me to the second point of the triangle: consciousness, psychology. This is my favorite. I'm sure that none of you will find that surprising. I mentioned earlier that your business is one of the greatest projectors of your deepest wounds. We all have these core beliefs that are instilled to us when we're born between the ages of 0 and 5. And many of us aren't even consciously aware of these beliefs. But these beliefs are so deeply embedded into our systems that they permeate every aspect of our lives. When you yell at your kids because they're throwing a tantrum, and then you inherently feel like I'm a bad mom. When your partner has a tone and you shut down, and then you feel guilty because you're like, I'm not available to my partner. When your business has a low month where you're not performing at the financial goals you would like, I'm a failure. These things come up over and over and again, and they live up here. And what I find with the entrepreneurs that I work with is that once you bring awareness to those belief systems that are quietly running in the background, we can get to the root of those. We can disintegrate them and reinstall a more appropriate program that will allow you to find success in all aspects of your life. But I think, again, for many people, they don't even realize this. They don't even think it's valuable. They want to strategy it away. But it is that deep unearthing of what is standing in your way. And it's usually stuff like from your early childhood. It's stuff that you wouldn't even inherently connect to your business. And so being able to really investigate, what are these beliefs that are inherently sabotaging you? What are your money stories? How was money talked about growing up? How was it handled? Was it taboo to talk about? Is that why you don't want to look your money in the eye in your business? Everything is intrinsically related. Visibility. I can't get on Instagram and talk about my business. Where has visibility been an issue in your life and in your past? Well, I was the baby of my family and I just shrunk myself because my siblings were so chaotic and a mess. So I just made myself small. Basically, any challenge, when somebody comes in with a challenge in their business, I can diagnose, and I'll use that word loosely, how that's connected to something of their past pretty much immediately. I can't strategy that away. I can't say, well, just set a goal to get on Instagram every day and you'll be fine, because it's usually connected to something deeply, deeply woven into our conscious/unconscious mind. And so having somebody to reprogram that and install something that is actually representative of who you are and who you want to become is a game changer. It accelerates you not only as a person, but as a business owner. And then the last piece of it is energetics. And so that would be the final point of the triangle. And energetics is, again, one of the most like underrated parts of business. And I only share this in certain spaces. I'm not going to go to like a giant meeting with a bunch of entrepreneurs in suits and say, oh, you all should be thinking about energetics. But energy is everywhere. It's energy. We can call it karma. We can call it just like vibes. Like, I'll meet you where you're at there. But I always say the most basic way of looking at energy is energy in is energy out. There's this like beautiful infinity symbol of reciprocity that flows between you and your business. And so what I find is people pour all this energy into their business, just like, building a website, marketing, attracting clients, hiring people. And then they get really upset when they don't feel like the business is flowing back into them, pouring back into them. And so really having someone that understands energetics at a root level and being able to use this as another modality to really clear out past belief systems, blockages, limiting thoughts and beliefs. It's in just another opportunity to liberate that consciousness and create that beautiful, harmonious infinity symbol between you and your business, with your business being on one side and you and your personal life being on the other. In the last year, for me personally, I've been in a deep portal of my own healing and transformation. Um, and I look back and I think my business should not have done as well as it did. Like, I wasn't putting in all this time and energy. I was really just showing up for my clients. I just didn't have the bandwidth because I was going through my own personal experiences that just, I had to rest more than ever before. Um, and I really had to take my hand off that control wheel. And I really do feel like there was this beautiful reciprocity that came in, because for the last year and a half, I've poured into this business. It has been my priority. It has been my focus. And this was an invitation for my business to pour back into me. And she did. And there's no strategy that I can point to and say, guys, do what I did. Like, that's energy work. And I think that reciprocity is something that we all strive for, because life ebbs and flows, and we don't want to have to always feel like we're carrying on our backs this business up this mountain that is life. Like, what if your business could take care of you? And so one of the things that I teach in a lot of my group coaching containers is the personification of your business. We think of it as just this floating entity, but really, I want you to personify it. What does it look like? Sometimes people think of it as like, for me, I thought of mine as a baby, like an actual like little baby. when it started, and I'm kind of visualizing her through this evolution. Like she's like a little girl now. Some people use animals, some people use imagery from nature, trees, flowers, stars. There's no right or wrong, but like personify that, name it, give it those human-like qualities, and then think about when you're criticizing it for not producing or for being stressful, would you ever talk to a baby like that? Would you ever go out and just like talk to a beautiful thing in nature and criticize it? Probably not. So why are you talking it to it like that? And so again, it's just a way, it's a thought exercise to get you to really think about how you can approach this business differently. So that essentially makes up the soul-led framework. And so it's the energetics, the consciousness slash psychology, and the strategy. And those brought together are what my recipe, the magic recipe is to really build a business that is built on capacity, sustainability, alignment, and purpose. And, how to create working less than ever before, making more money than you ever have, and doing work that is actually healing this planet, that is actually changing people's lives in whatever capacity you are meant to do it. And I think that is a good stopping point. I want to be mindful of our time, and I want to open it up for some questions as well. If anybody on live on our call has something they want to share or use this time to chat more. With that, I will say that we talked about a lot today, kind of like sprayed you with a bunch of different things. But I'm curious, what did we talk about for you? What came up for you and any questions you might have? Anybody want to jump in? Anything that you want to share? Drop into the chat. Steph says, I love the triangle. Yeah, it's a very great visual to kind of think about those different aspects of your business. Thank you. Any questions or just want to workshop something? I have the space if you are struggling with something or just even in that thought process, that dreaming process, we can definitely run through some things around that. Nicole, I have so much to ponder regarding my career. This has been so helpful. Oh, I'm so happy. Yeah, no, you have great things coming on the way. I'm so excited. So excited. And yeah, I think Nicole coming out of psychology, yeah, that we have a lot to talk about. There's a lot of like things that yeah, that I didn't realize were being programmed onto me during our training that I really had to disentangle and install new ways of looking at things. So yeah, definitely like reflecting back on your training experiences and thinking about what you want to keep and what you want to let go of. Anything else before I close us out today? Okay, well, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and drop into the chat my special offer that I am doing for this masterclass. So for the guys who are here live, you get access to this first, and then anybody who comes in after. So I'm doing a Black Friday special with all my pricing. Anything that you purchase with me is yeah, I can make a graphic. I have one. I will share that out as well via email. I'm locking in all my 2025 pricing before prices go up in the new year, but I'm doing a special friends and family offer for what I call my personality mapping. So this is actually an evidence-based, scientifically backed personality profile assessment. And I used these back in the day when I was working as a traditional psychologist to help people gain insight, and there's diagnostic properties to it, but that's not what I use it for any longer. This is the gold standard of personality assessment. And this is what I first used when I was starting my journey of being coached into becoming an entrepreneur. And the ability to be able to take a deeper insight and gain deeper insight, excuse me, to who you really are is one of the most powerful things that can accelerate your journey. So this is typically valued at $700. I am doing over half off discounts. So like really just want to make this an easy yes for people. What this includes is you get access to the assessment. You get to fill that out, and then a 90-minute session with me where I will walk you through your results of your unique personality profile, and then provide targeted recommendations. So like I can basically read it, and by the end of the 90 minutes, you have steps 1 through however many of start here, go here, move here, end here. And this not only is a tool that can be aligned in your personal life, but can also be applied into your business. So I might look at somebody and say, your nervous system is trash, for a lack of a better word. Let's start with getting that regulated before you even worry about making a website for your business. Let's get you feeling solid so that when you hit publish on that website, it feels super supportive and aligned. So again, really great tool. You cannot hide from numbers, which was something that I gleaned from my own experience in taking this. I could intellectualize anything and be like, I'm fine, but really being able to look at myself and really gain clarity on like, where are my gifts and my strengths, and what are things I'm running from? This is a tool that can clear that in a matter of 90 minutes. So again, this special over half off price is something that is a friends and family discount. I consider you all part of my family in this conscious entrepreneurship journey. So I am honoring this price between now and Friday. So for a week, if you book a session, you'll be able to lock in this special pricing, and then we'll go from there. I also, on my website, flowstatecc.com, free connection calls if you want to chat more and talk more about this. I can also send out an email talking about the framework of the triangle. Again, Steph, my challenge was getting away from slides for this, and be able to answer any questions you may have about that. But with that being said, that is all that I have for you guys today. Thank you to the folks who attended live. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your engagement. And for the people watching the replay, please feel free to reach out if you have any questions or if anything came up for you during this session. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and a good weekend. Thank you.